morning and welcome to the garden. Today I'm really excited about introducing everyone to a garden I created last year. And the reason I'm excited about it is because of how I created it. It is an edible forest garden, but with a diverse woodland meadow sown through it. So an edible forest garden is really taken from indigenous cultures around the world where they cultivate crops but mimicking a woodland structure. In a woodland, how you've got these different layers of climbers, herbaceous ground cover, shrubs, dwarf trees, canopy trees. It looks at that natural woodland system and then replicates it in a garden. But in this example, every layer is a different edible crop. So climbing vines, which produce fruit, ground cover perennial vegetables. And then what's really special about this garden is that I sowed a woodland meadow through it. So there's a really diverse flowering as well as the edible and useful crops. And this is an ecological garden that the intention is to reintegrate people with their surrounding environment and ultimately connecting them to the natural world that we depend on for our lifeline. So let's have a look around the garden and get into it. The planting is designed in layers. We'll start from the top. So the canopy is this cordyline that can be used as a fibre plant because when you pull the leaves apart it's very strong. And there was actually existing tree canopies here. But then what I've done is I've incorporated a variety of small trees. A dwarf apple tree, a dwarf pear tree, cornelian cherry, amelanchier, and these are trees that can be managed to be kept small and pruned each year to keep a high production in a small space. On the shrub layer there are a variety of different useful shrubs, blackcurrants, gooseberries, hascap or the honeyberry, and then I've also included things like the lemon verbena because the client really likes fresh tea. So that was one of the details I put in, was to actually incorporate fresh tea plants just to be able to come out and harvest whenever you wanted a nice herbal tea. The herbaceous and ground cover layer was created with a combination of seed and planting. So I took a woodland meadow seed mix and sowed that through the garden with a small percentage of annuals, so I could get flowering in the first year and then the perennials would take over in the second and years to come to create a sustainable planting. But what I then did is I planted into that a variety of different edible perennials and useful herbaceous plants. So here we've got a fennel, which is perfect for coming out and collecting leaves for fresh tea or to go in salads, and that's a very good digestive plant. There is a perennial kale that can live up to 8 years, but then it takes from cuttings very easily, and that's a great crop to add into stir fries or just boiled. To make use of the vertical space, I've incorporated 2 productive climbing vines. The goji berry, which is, as many people know, a superfruit, particularly popular dried and then added to muesli and other cooked dishes. But actually the goji berry is a great leaf crop that can be added to stir fries, and that actually is really popular in China. And the other climber I've incorporated is the hardy kiwi, or the kiwi berry, which is a very small kiwi without the hair on it, so you can eat it whole. And that is a very large and fast growing climber, which will eventually grow up the cabbage palm, called cordyline, and then you'll be able to walk past and harvest the little berries from it. The garden integrates a variety of different habitats. It has 2 dry stone stacks which have lots of little crevices for insects and other creatures to hibernate. and that creates a really nice warm microclimate for them because the stone captures the sun's heat in the day and irradiates that at night. And then there's also a wood stack which is perfect as the wood decays for beetles and other grubs to live in. And in the ecological garden you want to incorporate as many different features and habitat types to increase diversity, because what that does is when you create an ecosystem within your garden, it helps fight pests and diseases. Because when in a annual vegetable garden where you're growing one crop in a space, that can harbour pests and diseases and allow them to change over from plant to plant very easily. Whereas when you're growing crops in an ecological garden with this huge diversity of different plants, that gives habitat and feed for the predators of your pests, and it can actually confuse them, because going through a jungle of diversity trying to get from one plant to another plant is much harder when you're a specialist specifically looking for one plant. And then it also, things like the fennel attract hoverfly, which are perfect beneficial insects for the garden. All of the materials used in the garden are repurposed from on-site or natural materials. This scorched vertical post element in the garden really brings a structural interest, but these were actually from an old conservatory what were taken down. It was the joists, and I've scorched them to preserve their life and to create a sense of enclosure in this space. The path is wood chip, the edging, logs cut down from a tree on site. Stone stacks are created from stones taken from the garden as I was clearing it. In the ecological garden, the integration of wildlife, food, medicine, tea and beauty, the intention is to inspire people to care more about the environment around them. And a perfect example of this is the client's grandchild who goes through the garden picking berries, and that creates a connection between that human being and the natural environment, which has been lost. And when you create this connection, that makes them care more about the environment around them that they're dependent for their lifeline. I hope this garden inspires people to create more dynamic gardens that produce food and other resources but enhance wildlife. Thank you for watching and take care.